Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mind Body TV. I'm Dr. Kim Duramo, and I'm super excited to be sharing today about how not to take on other people's energies. Now, most of you who know me, I am a physician. I've practiced emergency medicine for years, but I've always been a very energy sensitive person. Now, that could be like a nightmare in the ER where there's a lot of people in fear or really feeling graspy for like, I'm not okay, I'm not okay. And to be energy sensitive, it really required me to more and more and more ground into center so that I didn't get carried off with everything that was going on around me. In fact, that's one of the main reasons why I was drawn to a career as an emergency medicine doctor. Years later, it's really served me in my practice to be able to remain in a space of wholeness, a space of completion, where I can invite others into that space. And as a healer, an intuitive healer of sorts, my work is effortless, and it's beyond anything I ever imagined before when I was trying hard to heal others. It's something that can happen, that I allow to come through me, that's effortless. So for a lot of us, especially if you're a practitioner, you can learn like I gotta protect myself or put up this bubble around me, or I've got to put up barriers and boundaries. And that is okay, it can work for the short term. It will eventually end up blocking some things out, possibly shutting down your awareness, or it will just become too much work for you to kind of constantly be setting up these energetic boundaries so that you're not taking on other people's energies. So I want to explain a little bit more about what's actually happening and how we can be in so much more fluidity that we allow energies to seamlessly move through without taking them on or them getting stuck or carrying them with us or feeling the heaviness of them. So you want to tune in, especially if you're a practitioner assisting others, or if you're a parent or in a close relationship with other people and you feel like, wow, sometimes I take on their energy in a negative way, or sometimes I get triggered. It is so helpful when we learn this way of centering within ourselves and kind of releasing everything we're carrying. It's amazing how this invites others into their wholeness. So if this is interesting to you, you'll definitely want to stay tuned in. Welcome to everyone who is listening live and everyone who's on the recording or in the podcast. We've now created the Mind Body TV podcast, which is super exciting. So I see a lot of really familiar faces out there, and I'd love to hear where you're tuning in from. And does this resonate with you? Have you ever had that experience of like, oh, I don't want to take on other people's negative energy? And we did do a broadcast about this, an episode in the past, about this idea of like negative energy and walking through Walmart and feeling like, ooh, I got all these energy gobs. When I used to work at Grady Hospital in Atlanta, some of my colleagues who didn't necessarily define themselves as energy sensitive or intuitive or anything like that would say, I feel like I have to go home and wash off the Grady, because you would just feel energetically so congested, like there was so much heaviness that was there in the energy. And yeah, we all do have an energy field. And as a doctor, like I've been really interested in scientifically what is that, because we can think spiritually there's this aura and it's a little airy-fairy for me. I didn't really get it. But when we think of ourselves as electromagnetic beings, we do have this energy field that's emitted beyond our physical body. And there can be some things that we sense into that, or that get kind of stuck in there, or that we carry with us, that we begin to identify like, this is me. And so that can be where there's the need or the thought that we need to have a boundary between myself and this other person. We are intimately connected, and so our energies intermingle and affect each other, and we can feel differently when we're in the presence of one person who maybe is joyful and free, and another person who is contracted and in a space of repression or self-hate. They will feel very different. But you don't actually need to be affected by that in a negative way. You can allow yourself to perceive it, to witness it, to understand it, and to behave accordingly and respond accordingly, and not necessarily feel the heaviness of it. So how do we do that? I'm going to welcome in those of you who are posting. Hi, Randy, Rachel, Teresa, woohoo, Peter, Arlene, Nicole. I love seeing everyone coming regularly to these lives because it's so much fun to interact. Dawn is from Winnipeg, Canada. I'm so sensitive to others' energy. I often feel drained. This happens a lot for practitioners too, and for even people who don't think they're energy sensitive, because we are all becoming more and more sensitive as the planet is accelerating, as humanity is awakening. Patty, hello. Jimbo, I love that we're getting a lot more men in the community. There have been a lot of men who've been more and more opening to themselves, and I think then this is the kind of thing that really invites them, and it's a really beautiful thing to see. So thank you for being here. I know for me in the beginning, I kind of tried to learn all these energy tools to block out these negative energies, and for me it never really felt fluid and easy and as effortless as how I do it now. And so I kind of always knew, wait, there's got to be a better way to be that is more seamless, so I can move through things and harmonize with others and not have to be kind of constantly creating that separation. And the truth is, the energies that arise within us when we're in the presence of another person that are disruptive or disharmonic or discordant are always the things that are ready to complete within us. And so if I can be really aware of what I'm feeling, what I'm noticing, and even just physically, like, oh, it feels like pressure in my chest or a tightness in my throat, tune into what I'm feeling physically, I can begin to allow myself to move through the energy. Not the same thing as I got to get rid of this energy. I got to protect myself from this energy. It's not actually the truth. We can allow ourselves to be in total fluidity with all energies so that we're moving in harmony in all that we do. Now, it's super important when you have kids, or if you're a practitioner working with other people who are kind of like sharing all their stuff that comes up, to be able to operate this way. And the reason is, if you go into contraction around what's happening for them, either a patient sharing, like I know when I first operated in the was working in the osteopathic medicine clinic as a fellow, and people would talk about my fibromyalgia, my chronic fatigue syndrome, and all these really heavy, like, oh, I feel powerless, or nothing's working for me, or I've tried everything, and can you help me? I would feel that powerless victim energy, and it felt so suppressive. And the reason it felt that way was because I hadn't expanded within myself in that energy. I hadn't incorporated or integrated or neutralized my experiences of powerlessness. So this happens for a lot of doctors where it's like, oh God, this person is just like, they have so many problems, and they might be in judgment or in frustration or impatience with like, why isn't this person getting better? Or even more overtly cruel things like telling a patient, this is your own fault. It's in your head. You just need to change. You just need to let this go. Being so frustrated that we kind of project it onto the patient as their wrongness. I don't think anyone who's listening to this does it that way, but I know there are a lot of doctors or practitioners that I've seen and experienced that kind of do it that way. And there's so much impatience within them that they can't really open to witness what's actually going on with that patient and be able to assist. Same thing with our kids. It can be really overwhelming, and then we kind of think, oh, I have a really challenging kid. I remember when I was living in Wakefield, and we'd always go to this one park in the Boston area, and the way I would hear people speak about their kids, I would just be shocked. Oh, I have a really difficult child. She's just so difficult. And then they would talk about their experience, but it wasn't a matter of I'm having a challenge dealing with the behavior of this child. It was the wrongness of my child. She's a problem. Oh, woe was me. And I would just be like, oh, that just feels awful. Not just for the kid, of course, but total powerlessness for the parent who's like, I have this problem and there's really no great solution. We can instead begin to centralize the experience. So whether it's your child and there's a challenge you're having, or a challenge they're having that's bringing up grief for you, that means it's a challenge you're having, or it's a patient that you're dealing with, or a client you're dealing with, or a family member you're dealing with, someone that you want to assist, but you're getting frustrated, or you just don't know, like, how do we move this energy? How do we go beyond this? What's always really helped me is to centralize the experience. What am I experiencing? Yes, maybe my daughter's having a challenge. Yes, maybe she's behaving in a way that I think is just so wrong and inappropriate. But what's actually happening? Go into your body. what is actually happening, you will feel in the here and now. Because the projections, oh, she's always like this. Oh, we have such a problem. Oh, it's because I've been so lenient in the past and now she's spoiled and she pushes me over, or whatever. Or as a practitioner, oh, I'm just expected to help everybody and take on everybody and it's just too much. We can actually do it from a space of victim instead of empowerment. And all of that is a lie. Come back into the body and let your body be your ally for your child, for your practice, for what you're trying to create. So how do we do that? When we begin to tune into what we feel physically, we have an experience, a tangible experience in the body. And it may be that we feel the emotions going on or the mentality we're in, or even feeling the quality of our electromagnetic field, which for those of you who are energy sensitive, you're kind of doing that all the time. And I'm with you. But we don't need to experience it as so disruptive. It's actually our judgment of it or resistance of it that has us feel the tension of it. Oh my gosh, this is way too much. And then we have to fix it. So what if you could instead register it from a space of neutrality, purely witnessing, this is what I feel in my body. Every time my partner says this thing or does this thing, this is what I feel. Every time my child has that behavior or does this thing, this is what I feel. Or if you're a practitioner and someone's talking about their problem, or you'll feel triggers if you're present in your body when you're allowing your patient to share. And I've shared this in the past. One of my favorite osteopathic doctors, he's an MD and a DO and has just an amazing background of like a Cherokee medicine background. I think it's in his family, shamanistic stuff. He's really explored things as a doctor to kind of put the whole picture together. And he was saying, we were talking about how if you're really present to a patient, they will share exactly, precisely what it is that's really going on that needs support. And Tudor said, yes, and if you stay even more fully present, you'll witness the healing process happen right before your eyes. And it was such a truth that I realized, yeah, this can be effortless. I don't have to do the heavy lifting to help my patient and heal my patient. And oh my God, you're right. You really do have it so bad. What can we do? The way I perceived it way back then, because I'd go right into the hopelessness with them. Geez, she's right. There is nothing that can be done. This is hopeless. This is so heavy. That wasn't the truth. And now I can reside in a space that allows all of that to be as true as it is for her or for him, whoever's presenting, and just honor the space of their pain. And that alone invites them into their awakening, invites them into their alignment, just to have that be received without the bouncing back of, oh, well, I get it. That's such a problem. My God, that must be terrible. Or, oh, well, that's okay because you don't have to feel that anymore because we're going to do this thing. All of those things can be a quick fix, but they are no match for the infinite healing capacity that lies within every person you meet, every client you work with, every patient you have, or your children or your loved one. And I certainly practice this in my marriage because I can always feel in those spaces where I'm feel like I just need to speak my truth, but I'm actually in my anger. I'm actually in my resentment. And I have learned through really messy trial and error that is never actually my truth. My truth can only come through when I'm in a degree of serenity, of allowing, of compassion for myself, not in those states of anger or resentment where I'm just so sure I'm right and it has to be heard. Because all that ever comes out there is BS, belief systems, and they're usually pretty detrimental. So I know as a practitioner, this has been the most essential thing that's allowed me to do things, to witness things, to allow things for my clients that are truly miraculous and way beyond what the medical paradigm says is possible for. You have Lyme disease, you have autoimmune, you have thyroid disease, you have Epstein-Barr, blah, 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 and everything people think that means. And to go way beyond it and allow a transmutation where they're in ideal health anyway, and no longer have that condition or that imbalance or that virus. Super, super powerful. And it's much more understood than we might think. And certainly reproducible and something we can all do. So I am seeing, Susan says, hi, Dr. Kim from Effingham, Illinois. Yes, Walmart almost takes me down and out. Sometimes there's a lot of low frequency energies there. So yeah. Patty says, I'm so happy to be here. Susan, my Cairo homeopath has a healing effect in me just getting near him. Me too. And mine is on the phone. We'll have a brief chat or text, and he always can really nail it. But even after I get off the phone, I'm like, I already feel better. The first time I ever saw him in his office, before I even took the remedy, I already was resonating in the frequency of what I was choosing. The remedy just supported that. It's not just a placebo effect either. There's actually a lot of what those remedies create energetically, electromagnetically, that is really powerful, but it will only support me into the expansion that I'm ready to choose. It can't like force it or do something or alter things the way drugs and chemicals do. It's very, very different, but it's amazing because I feel that exact same way, just having him there for me. Peter says, I don't worry about other people's energy. I've got enough trouble with my own. Amen. And it really is our own stuff that we meet when others trigger us. So if there's something we don't like and it's like, oh, I just got to get away from that person, they're just so negative, it's always something I'm resisting in myself. If I weren't in resistance to that, I wouldn't even be inviting those people into my reality, or they'd walk right by, I wouldn't even notice, or they'd do the thing they do and it just wouldn't even occur to me to mind. But that's not how it always happens. It's like, oh, they do that thing and it just drives me nuts. So what is it you're carrying that you're ready to release, that person is inviting you to? Hello to Cindy Boyle. Oh my goodness, it's so great to see you here. And Sarah. Coralie says, my whole summer has been hell. My mother-in-law's been with us from Slovakia since the beginning of July until the end of September. I'm so stressed and triggered the whole time, and she turns my husband against me too. The energy's horrible, and I just don't know how to move through it because it's so intense. The only time I feel better is when I leave the house and go somewhere, but as soon as I have to go back, I feel horrible again. This is a great comment because sometimes life gives us situations and we just can't wiggle out of them, and we are in overwhelm. And it does feel like, oh, if I just had 10% of this, I could learn to adapt and move through it. But I'm just like bombarded with it, and it's in my space and it's everywhere, and it's impossible for me to even find sanity through it to become resilient and move through. And it's okay. Sometimes the intensity gets really cranked up, and I always remember, like, with every breath I take, I'm releasing eons and eons of this heaviness, as opposed to like maybe just a little bit, because it's not that intense for me anyway. So I would invite you to do all the things that nurture you, including, if it's available, that maybe you rearrange the living situation. Because sometimes it's not really available, like, oh, no, that feels so off. That feels way heavier than just kind of moving through it. So just feel it for yourself, because we always have to honor what is right for us, and what we need is always available. I've had the situation recently with our dog, and it was so overwhelming, and so much came up for me, and so much anger. And it was really a lot about resentment of my husband. Resenting, why did he even do this? Why did he pick this dog? Why did we have to do it at this timing? I just had a baby. This was so not okay. But it was all about this old way of making him wrong because I'm right and I know better, and he's just totally clueless. Like, whatever that little game was I was playing in my mind. When he approached the whole thing about having the dog, I was aware that it created more resistance to keep saying no than it did to say yes and just embrace the dog. And then after we got the dog, I was like, I just want to kick myself. Why did I do that? Why didn't I resist more? This is so clearly not what I want. And there really wasn't any way to get around it. So now there's 3 things you can do when you don't like something, or when something isn't resonating for you. You can leave it, which would be like, okay, I'm going to leave the house and go away, or have my mother-in-law just move out. That's always available. Sometimes it's not the option that is resonating for us. It's like, no, that's not even worth it. That's not really where I am. The second one is we change it. So we kind of like work on things like, hey, maybe there's certain things you can work on. I already feel that that's not an opportunity right now, like to have your mother-in-law change. That might just be way too big a hurdle to even approach. But often there are things we can do with changes that allow us to kind of adjust for what's going on. And then the third option is to accept it exactly as it is. And I've used this example before, and it was from Eckhart Tolle's work in The Power of Now, that we come to this realization that one of those three is always going to be available. So in this situation, maybe it's that you accept it as it is, okay? Maybe having her leave is like not even worth the rearrangement, changing her even more impossible. So what can I do to arrange myself around what is? Can you take a nice walk every day? Can you get out for 5 hours a day? Can you maybe even eat your meals elsewhere? Like, who knows? Or maybe you just do like a really good meditation every day and you're like, I can get through the day in this circumstance. But find a way to be with what is so that you can be in harmony and ease. So always one of those three will be available. With me and the dog, it wasn't something that was worth leaving my husband or my home or my family or the situation. Like, it's not a red flag for me. So even though I really hated it and it brought up so much anger and resentment, I knew that leaving that's not where we were. The second was to change it. And believe me, I tried my freaking hardest almost every day to change it, to get him to see like, this was clearly not the right choice. We definitely should rethink this. Let's find another family for the dog. Let's do this. Let's do that. And it was just like meeting a brick wall. But there was just no way that was going to happen between, my daughter being all in love with the dog and my husband just, in my mind, being super, super hard-headed. And I'm like, why is he so stubborn? I realized that life was inviting me to a third option. And it was only through really connecting with myself and a really great conversation with my girlfriend, Jamie, that I realized that there was more expansion available for me in that third option of embracing it as it is and letting all these energies of resentment move through than any of the other two options. And until I was faced with that, I really didn't want to meet this pain. And I remember expressing to her, like, wow, I just feel like so much is expected of me. Now, I had this conversation with another friend, and she went into, yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous, and he shouldn't be expecting that of you, and, you should just tell him, and that's crazy. And I knew, even though I love this friend, I'm like, that isn't actually resonating as my deepest truth. It's still pushback, and it doesn't feel like what life is really inviting me to. So even though I didn't like it, I was willing to see where the expansion was for me. And for me, it not just it was, but it is, because this is like an ongoing process, being willing to be with the situation as it is and come into greater harmony myself. And of course, dogs are energy sensitive. So my dog has responded to this. And like so many of the behaviors that were happening where I felt so attacked and threatened are not happening anymore. And yes, my husband told me that would happen. Like, well, he's responding to your fear. But I was like, yeah, and I don't like it, and I'm not going to change, and we can't keep this dog. I have invited myself into something higher, and it is very challenging, but it is making a huge difference. And even more importantly than that, it's invited me into really receiving my husband and no longer seeing him as like this separate person who has his own agenda, and why is he so hard-headed, and why does he do it this way? I do it this way, being right. It's kind of like this other layer. I've moved through so many of these, but it's this other layer of intimacy and willingness and true partnership. And that really was what I was asking for on so many levels. I didn't know how to create it, but I did have this inner awareness that somehow this dog would create more in my life. Susan says, I agree. For some reason, my home makes me feel the intenseness. And when I'm out and about, I feel so much better. Yeah, it's not about feeling better. It's about transcending and expanding. And so if I just want to feel better, it'd be like, the dog is gone, and I'm going to march on my merry way and keep whatever this way of being is that I've already been in. And life is expanding me beyond that way of being so that I have greater resilience, so that I have less of those little hooks where things trigger me, like the dog or my husband or any of the above. And all of this ultimately invites me into more fluidity with everything that I do, and especially my work with others who are in illness or pain or depression or fear. All right, so we have some more people joining. Welcome. We're going to be completing this broadcast. We do post these to the Mind Body this broadcast. We post this to the Mind Body podcast on iTunes each week, and I'm here every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Mountain. 1 p.m. Eastern. We do have a live webinar coming up in about half an hour, and it's all about living your soul purpose. The reason I'm doing this is because so much of our aliveness that's like blocked, and we're not in our health and abundance and wealth and love and all of these things, has to do with, am I really living my soul purpose? And it's centered a lot around our work or how we're working with others, especially for practitioners, but it applies to everything we're doing. Am I truly being my authentic expression of self in my home, my work, my relationships, in all these areas of our lives? And how can we access more of our true self to allow flourishing in our body? So the link for this is drkimd.com/purpose. drkimd.com/purpose. If you would like to come and attend the live webinar that we're having today, I would love to have you there live, and there'll be the opportunity for questions and things like that, really centered around who am I being in my life, who am I being in my world, and how do I allow myself to move into a world that's more of a reflection for who I truly am, a world that embraces, recognizes, and receives this essence and this gift of who I am, and lets me live in the fluidity of that, expressing my greatest talents, my greatest strengths, and the things that come effortlessly to me. That, to me, is one of the greatest gifts, greatest expressions of aliveness. And so I'm super excited to be sharing this webinar. Again, it's drkimd.com/purpose if you'd like to register. Peter says, I learned from you to take everything personally and deal with what I'm experiencing. And it's also kind of like to take nothing personally, take everything and feel it and witness it and know it's my stuff. But we actually can say, like, don't take anything personally. Like, this person's behaving this way, and then the mind thinks it's like, oh my God, did I do something wrong? Or even feeling fatigued and sick and thinking, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? I did something wrong. And it's like, no, this is what's happening. And I can move through it fluidly. I don't have to make it mean what I'm making it mean. Thank you, Peter. Coralie, hello. Elise, I felt better when I was out of my house over the summer. Now that I have such anxiety, I have anxiety that maybe my home is making me sick. I actually just had a private client who has had so many things come up after we did her initial opening and her Skype session and moving through a lot of energies. And one of the things she said is there's this awareness that there may be some toxicity in my home. And I invited her into the realization that the more we just embrace where we are, the more energy we have and clarity we have to make choices that create more. And it doesn't mean, oh my God, this home is making me sick. I got to figure it out. I got to get out of here. This is bad. It's not. The alignment of embracing what is, like, here I am right now, and in this 10 seconds, I'm in my home and it's okay, creates a major change in your electromagnetic field. So that's stronger and more powerful than your chemical field or your hormones or what's going on physically, stronger and more powerful than the emotions and all of the signals that get transmitted chemically through our emotions, is this electromagnetic field that gets emitted. And so if we can just soften around the trauma we think is going on from, I'm in a toxic home, there's mold, or there's, all kinds of toxic exposures, and just let ourselves for this 10 seconds, and it's okay that I'm right here, right now. It is very, very powerful in igniting and strengthening your immune system, and igniting even your cardiovascular system and how you detoxify and release waste products and bring oxygen and nutrients to the cells and let the cells be healthy. It is so much more powerful than any of these physical toxins that may be around us, that coming into the harmony with what is, and I'm not saying then you just force yourself to sit there for 10 years, will allow you to become more alive. And then that brings you the mental clarity or the energy or the awareness, the resources to create something different. That it won't be through like, oh, I gotta go, I gotta get a new house, I gotta look for this, I gotta go. It'll be like, oh, maybe I'll do a home search, maybe I'll call a friend, maybe whatever feels fluid to me. But that those things will lead to a synchronous alignment that brings you into a new home, that brings you into a non-toxic environment. I definitely love the idea of like non-toxic cleaning supplies and things like that, but it really didn't feel fluid to go online and do a search and what's the best one and what can I do? And like right along the time I was ready to receive that, my cousin sent me a link and was like, oh, here's this company that I'm, buying through. And if you want to buy through my, because it's like a personal, independent distributor. If you want to buy through my independent business, here's the stuff we have. I'm really, really into this and it's amazing. And I've already checked it out. And I was like, yeah, how easy is that? Great. I'll have this and this and this. And, I'm putting an order in with her, but it can be so much more effortless than we sometimes make it. Nicole says, thank you for another amazing live video. You are so inspiring. Thank you, sweet love. Dawn says, are there not times when the energy really is harmful, like watching the news? Yeah, so you cannot watch the news. If you're doing something that you're registering like, oh, this isn't so great for me, turn it off. But if it's the problem is when we start to think like, it's okay, but I can't get away from it because everyone in my family has to watch the news and so I have to fight against it. It's like, just take a breath, find your resilience, which is way more powerful than anything coming through the TV anyway. And that empowers you to invite change. And it may be inviting your family like, hey, why don't we do it differently? Let's do something else. But the invitation you're being there can allow them to choose it. Whereas we're in the fight of like, TV is toxic and all these cleaning supplies are toxic and we need to do it differently. And everyone's actually going to become more resistant because you have embodied fear. It's like it contracts their system. You're in fear and their electromagnetics, even if they don't know why, go into fear. So it's less, not more likely that they can receive what you are suggesting. Elise says, thank you for your perspectives. They've shifted so much for me. Beautiful. Susan says, thank you, Dr. Kim. I'm going to watch the live webinar. Woohoo. Elaine, thank you. Accepting where I am. Sorry. And that it's okay really resonated with me. Yeah, it's always available. And like I said, it brings you more options, not less. So sharing so much love with you. This is Dr. Kim Duramo. I'm at drkimd.com. We have already launched the Be the Medicine program. So for those of you who are practitioners or assisting other people or energy workers, coaches, doctors who are ready to move into something more fluid and expansive so that you receive more as you contribute to others. It's a really, really beautiful program. We've run it for a few years now, but we're all starting up together as a group in October. It's at drkimd.com/BTM. You can check that out, see if it resonates with you. And again, I'll see you in the live webinar. It's at drkimd.com/purpose if you would like to register for the live webinar. So much love to all of you and thank you for being here. I will see you soon.